And joining us today is Ambassador Keshap. He was recently in India for a very successful USIBC event. People must have followed it in India, a very successful event there. And we have him to talk about that. Plus, the Prime Minister of India is going to be in New York. He's going to be speaking at the UN. There are multiple engagements. He's going to be talking at the Quad Summit. And who better to talk about it than Ambassador Keshap himself? Ambassador, thank you so much for doing this.
Good to see you, Rohit. Thanks for your time.
Let's, from the top, tell us more about the event. You had a very successful event in New Delhi. Any deliverables, any things that we could look forward to between the India and the U.S. relationship with that?
Thank you, Rohit. We had about 12 senior U.S. government officials fly out, including head of agency, the governor of Iowa. We had folks like Nisha Biswal, my dear friend, and we had a great event. We had interactions with about 11 different Indian cabinet ministers, and the focus now of the USIBC and of these two partners across both governments is implementation. Implementation of the deliverables in the joint statement between the two, President and Prime Minister, from June of 2023 on defense, on semiconductors, on supply chains, on green and renewable energy. I had a really good set of discussions with government officials in India about what it takes to address some of the issues that need to be worked in order to make the flow of FDI and job creation even greater in both directions. So an excellent summit. This is our 49th year. Next year will be 50, so we'll do it even bigger next year.
Any deliverables that you could expect from Prime Minister's visit right now? Because you were there. It's kind of, you were there setting up the stage for this visit. So anything we can expect?
So my sense of the Prime Minister's visit and the Quad Summit that's going to happen is that India and the United States and Japan and Australia, the four great democracies of the Indo-Pacific, basically stand on the same side of things. They believe in democracy. They believe in human freedom. They believe in freedom of assembly and press. They believe in, the things that create the software of productive countries and unleash the potential of free people. And they believe that not only for ourselves, but for all of the countries of the Indo-Pacific. So the Quad Summit is more about the values we espouse, and it frankly pushes back against the kind of bullying and intimidation that other kinds of countries indulge in that we find completely unacceptable and which create unnecessary burden and pressure on our allies and friends. So I'm very happy that it's happening. I think it's a very great sense of commitment by these four countries, and particularly by the U.S. and India.
This would be President Biden's last Quad Summit. What kind of legacy would he want to leave? I mean, we've seen, Quad becoming more central in the last 4 years or so. What kind of legacy would you think he would want to leave with this last summit?
So, Rohit, I've seen a lot of continuity in government initiatives by the United States and by India over the past 25 years. I feel like President Biden's presidency fits exactly within that continuity in the sense that some of the initiatives that have been launched in this presidency include the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology, the Innovation Handshake, and the Indus-X Defense Accelerator. All three were launched with both governments and USIBC and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and they're focused on the technology convergence. So, as other governments worked on the Civ-Nuke deal and the military agreements and, fending off the Galwan episode, so this government has focused on technology, and it's very focused on the lessons that we all learned from the pandemic, especially on supply chains and building communities of trust. And the U.S. and India are essentially high-trust economies that can lean on one another as the 21st century unfolds.
What would you expect the Prime Minister to talk about when he's here? I mean, you're just coming from New Delhi, so you probably get a sense of it. What kind of things we can expect from the Prime Minister, especially when he talks to the diaspora and meet with U.S. leaders and some of the bilaterals?
Well, I can't speak for the Prime Minister or speculate, but what I can say is that the need of the hour for both governments, and I've said it to both governments, is we need agreements that take care of one another, right? We may not be able to fix global trade. There are cheaters and outriders, free riders that have abused global trade, but we should do things for one another, India and the United States, that are good for our people. So we ought to work on a digital services agreement. We ought to work on mutual recognition standards for electronics and pharmaceuticals, and for all of the new technologies that are essential for our people. If we can't fix the bigger problems, let's take care of ourselves.
Okay, and one last question I have to ask, and you may not want to answer this. A lot of questions around who's going to win the election, and I'm not going to ask you who, but questions around what would India-U.S. relationship look if there's a change in the government? How do you anticipate that?
So I'm not too worried about the election in regard to the U.S.-India equation because there's so much continuity, Republicans and Democrats, over the decades toward India and toward increasing our engagement with India. And that's true in India as well, where there's been a bipartisan consensus that our countries need to get closer together. So what I want is ambition. By whoever gets elected president of our great country, I want ambition to take the U.S.-India relationship to the next level, and I want that matched in New Delhi as well, which is why this kind of summitry, the Prime Minister coming back here to have a bilat with President Biden and then a Quad summit, is a very important signal of the commitment India has made to us and we have made to India, and I want more ambition. USIBC has been a partner to both governments for almost 5 decades. We're happy to help implement whatever vision that is, as we are already doing. Let's aim higher.
Okay. So that's Ambassador Kashyap, as joyful as ever, as positive as he can be about the India-US relationship. This is Rohit Sharma from Washington, D.C. for India Today.